In this video, I'm going to show you how to replace the brake master cylinder on this Jeep Wrangler. It's located right on the driver's side of your firewall, mounted to the brake booster. So let's get started. To begin, I'm going to remove as much of the old brake fluid as I can from this reservoir. So take the cap off. I have a vacuum pump, just a manual vacuum pump that I'm going to use to basically suck the fluid out. If you have anything else that'll remove the fluid, just use whatever you have. But removing this fluid will make, hopefully a little bit less of a mess when we disconnect the lines. Okay, that's pretty much it. This reservoir isn't very large, it doesn't hold that much fluid. Next, we have to disconnect these two lines. We're going to use a 12mm wrench. I recommend a flare nut wrench or a line wrench because it grabs onto a couple extra sides. Put that wrench on, try to break this free. A lot of times these fittings do get stuck. All right, looks like the fitting is spinning without the line, which is perfect. That's ideal. That's what you want. Sometimes these fittings will get stuck on the line, and in that case, you want to work it back and forth. Do the same to both. Get these broken free. I'm just using a rubber mallet on the end of my wrench to help me with breaking these free. Once you have these loose, you can use a regular wrench. It's going to be a whole lot easier, but for breaking them free, I recommend that line wrench so that you don't round off the fittings. At this point, I have some absorbent rags underneath so that they can soak up all the brake fluid that leaks down. Brake fluid is not good for paint. Try not to get it on your paint. If you do get it on the paint, wash it off immediately. So I'm trying my best to protect it here since my fender or wheel arch is right underneath. And once I pull this line out, there's the fluid. When it comes to pulling these, you can bend them just a little bit, but don't do it too much because you can actually damage the brake line itself. Then you'll need to make a new one. Okay. The master cylinder has some mounting hardware on each side that looks like this. This is a mounting nut on a stud. We have to take the nut off so we can take this bracket off, which then gives us access to the stud, which then gets the master cylinder off of here. So, having said that, take a 13mm socket or wrench, break this free, and remove the mounting nut. Do the same on the other side of the master cylinder. With that removed, you'll be able to pull this away. This gives us access to the mounting nuts that hold the master cylinder in place. There are two, also 13mm in size. They're exactly the same style mounting nut as these ones here. So remove them both. There's one on each side. Do the same on the other side. With those removed, you'll be able to wiggle the master cylinder right out. There it is. Inspect this mounting area on the brake booster. The seal rides right on this inner lip here. That's still in good condition, so I'm going to leave that. Take your new master cylinder, remove this yellow protective boot that's over the shaft. You're going to have to push this bracket out of the way, get the master lined up, and slid over the two studs. Make sure it goes in all the way. Put on the mounting nuts. And just so I don't accidentally over tighten them, I'm going to tighten these by hand, bottom them out all the way, and then of course we're going to torque them. Just make them snug for now. The torque for all of this hardware is 13 foot-pounds. So we're going to torque these on both sides to 13, and then later on, when this goes on, also 13 on the bracket nuts. Do the same on the other side. Before I put in this bracket, because that locks in my lines or their position unless I bend them, which I'm trying to avoid, I'm going to hook up two homemade lines here to bleed the master cylinder. You could do this before you install it. It's just going to kind of make a mess all over. It still will, but at least I have some pads here to absorb it. And my lines are going to go in here and here, loop up and into the master cylinder. I'll pump the brake pedal, air and fluid will come out of here, get pushed in, it'll naturally rise to the top, and then repeat that procedure and basically self-bleed the master cylinder. Then I will hook this on and put my lines in. These are my homemade lines. If you end up doing the same thing, you're going to need two different size fittings. Reference the original lines if you need to, because they are not the same. This one is larger, this one is smaller. Remove the cap, and let's install these lines. I'm not going to fill it with fluid yet until the lines are in because it's just going to pour out the bottom. I'm trying to avoid a mess. All right, so I stuck my lines in there. I'm just going to tighten up the fittings here. They don't need to be extremely tight. Now, take some new brake fluid and pour it right into the master cylinder. Fill it up. This is not a huge system, so you don't need a ton. As you can see, air bubbles are already starting to come up and out of the lines. Now I'm going to go in the Jeep and pump the brake pedal. I'm going to slowly pump the brake pedal all the way to the floor, very slow. That's at the floor right now, so air should stop. I'm going to give it a second, and now I'm going to release just as slow, really slowly. You don't want to agitate the fluid and create more air bubbles. All right, that's completely released. I'm just going to repeat this process several times. At this point, my master cylinder is bled. Shouldn't take a long time. So now what I want to do is loosen up these lines. Unfortunately, we will lose some fluid and it's going to drip because now the master is full and the lines are full too. So as soon as I disconnect them, it's all going to pour down. Make sure you have something to catch it. Once again, just like I said at the beginning, that way it doesn't get on the paint. I'll also have these lines ready to go in as soon as these come out. I never tighten these much, so I'm just going to break them free with pliers and remove them by hand. Once again, brake fluid will leak once you do this. Because of the setup here, where both lines are really short and really close to each other, unfortunately I have to do both at once, but that's okay. Try your best to start these fittings on as soon as you can. Whatever you do though, make sure you don't cross thread them. Make sure they start on smoothly. This one actually started, so that's good. I'm gonna try and plug this one up and just tighten this one so that this one at least stops leaking. All right, that one's snug. Now we can focus on this one. At this point, we have stopped the leak. I do want, however, to clean everything up. That way there's no brake fluid hanging around here, getting on the paint or anything like that. Now I'm going to switch to my line wrench and just give these a quick snug. That's tight. All right, that's tight. You want to cap the reservoir off at this point and spray brake parts cleaner. Get all of this brake fluid off of here so it doesn't corrode anything. You also want to make sure that all of this stays nice and dry. Otherwise, if you do have a leak, you may confuse it for residual. That would not be good. I'm going to remove all of my pads here now that I've cleaned everything off. Reinstall the mounting nuts that hold on the bracket, and we'll tighten them up. Torque, like I said, is also 13 foot-pounds for these as well. Okay, this is mounted, connected, cleaned up. So now, top off the master cylinder once again, and it is necessary to do a full brake bleed at this point. This vehicle is non-ABS, so it's even more of a direct process, but you do need to make sure there is no air in the system.
So I have some .3, .4 combo brake fluid. I'm going to fill that right up to the top. Always put the cover back on. And now we're going to start our sequence. The procedure will be right rear, right front, left front. I have someone inside to help me pump up the brakes. So we're going to take that boot cover off, and it is an 8mm, and I'm going to put on my little catcher. Go ahead and pump the brakes up and hold them. Putting that on it. There we go. So you want to you want to do it till you get no air. Close it up. Pump it up. Got lots of air in here. Pump it up. I'm just going to see how much air I have. I have a catch basin down below. Okay, I've got no air, so I'm going to close this up tight. So now I'm going to clean it off with some brake clean. And re-put that dust boot right on that bleeder screw. Okay, now we're on the left rear. I'm going to take that dust boot off. The bleeder screw is an 8mm wrench. Going to get it on there. Have the person inside the vehicle pump it up. That looks pretty good. Pump it up. All right, I'm going to snug this up, clean it up, and then check my master. So now we're going to put our cover back on, and we're going to go check the master. All right, so now we're going to check our master and top it off. Remove the cover. You can see it's right about here. So we're going to bring it right up to the top again. Always put the cover back on. All right, so now we're going to remove the dust boot from this bleeder screw on the caliper. Set it aside. And this is going to be a 10mm wrench. We're going to have our driver go ahead and pump it up.
Holding.
Now we're going to take that screw and I'm going to put see if I can catch most of the fluid. Break it free. Pump it up. I'm looking for a little bit cleaner fluid, and then I'll be done. You can see the color starting to change. Close it up. Now let's clean it up with some brake clean, and we'll move on to the other side. Don't forget to put the dust cover back on. Now we're going to take the dust boot off the caliper bleeder. 10mm wrench. Make sure it fits. There we go. Put our line on. Pump it up. Holding. Break it free. Close it up. Pump it up again. Open it up. Close it up. Pump it up. This is the shortest line to the master, so it shouldn't take as long. Open it up. The line's already getting clean. Clear fluid's coming through. We'll do it one more time. Close the line. Pump it up. Yeah, that's nice and clean coming out. Okay, remove our bottle. Make sure that's nice and tight. Go ahead and pump it up. Tell me how it feels. Clean it and then put the cap back on. Now we're going to top our master fluid off for the last time. When that happens right there, that's normal. That means the suction was pulling down on that. You're just going to push that boot right back inward like that, and that's the way it's supposed to be. Now we can take our brake fluid and top it off. This time we're not going to go all the way to the top. We're going to go right to that fill line. Brake fluid does expand. See those two dots right there? That's where the manufacturer would like it. Right in between those two lines. Replace the cover. Make sure it's tight. When only the best will do, demand TRQ. The only company that lets you view before you do. TRQ is committed to offering the highest quality aftermarket auto parts that are engineered for peace of mind. Thanks for using and viewing with TRQ.